Today we're talking Marvel Studios' Moon Knight, sketching with Mark Henn from Sketchbook, and so much more. I'm Andre.
And I'm Jenny. This is What's Up Disney Plus, where we talk all things Disney Plus.
We've officially come full circle with the Marvel Studios Moon Knight finale waiting near.
That's right. Marvel Studios Moon Knight is a globe-trotting action-adventure series featuring a complex vigilante with dissociative identity disorder.
Moon Knight finds himself thrust into a deadly war of the gods against the backdrop of modern and ancient Egypt. Now, in honor of the big finale, we're looking back at some epic moments from the series so far.
In the first episode, we're introduced to mild-mannered museum employee Stephen Grant, who falls asleep in London and wakes up in an alpine village.
There he meets the mysterious Arthur Harrow, which leads to our first epic moment, a thrilling and sweet chase scene.
Our next moment comes when Stephen is confronted by Harrow at the museum. Cornered, the only way out of the situation is for Stephen to allow Mark Spector, his alter, to take over his body, which gives us our first look at Moon Knight. So cool.
So cool. And then we get the moment when Khonshu reveals himself to Stephen. It's our first look at the god, and we have no idea if he's friend or foe, but he looks awesome.
There's a truly iconic moment when Stephen attempts to summon the Moon Knight suit and ends up in a more formal version, introducing us to Mr. Knight.
Finally, Stephen gives Mark control of his body to become Moon Knight. We get a gripping fight where he and his estranged wife Layla take on one of Harold's jackals and live to tell the tale.
Talk about an epic location for this one. In Egypt, Mark and Layla attempt to stop Harrow from finding Amit's tomb. Khonshu eclipses the sun to get the attention of his fellow gods, leading Mark to the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Our next moment comes courtesy of another awesome Moon Knight fight. While trying to decode a clue in Sinfu's sarcophagus, Harrow arrives and chaos ensues. We get a better look at Moon Knight's abilities, and Mr. Knight returns as they swap control during the fight.
At the end of episode 3, we get the incredible scene where Khonshu literally moves the night sky with the help of Mr. Knight. If this isn't epic, I don't know what is.
In episode 4, Layla gets an epic moment. While navigating the pyramid with Mark, she must take on a Hakka priest.
For a second there, we think she's a goner, but she manages to fight off her foe while balancing on a precarious ledge.
What a moment!
Now we get to hear from the cast of Marvel Studios' Moon Knight.
Hello everyone, I'm Ethan Hawke and I play Arthur Harrow.
And I'm Meg Halamawi and I play Layla in Moon Knight.
When we saw Oscar in his Moon Knight costume for the first time, it became really real.
Yeah.
And real in a fun way, because there's a little part of you when you act in these things that does feel like you're a kid playing in your backyard. It's just the costumes are much better and the sets are much better. You're just kind of creating myths and telling these wonderful stories, and it's playful. It all became very real when I actually met Moon Knight.
Same.
Marvel Studios' Moon Knight is now streaming on Disney Plus, and don't miss the finale on May 4th. Night lights and telescopes encouraged, but not required.
I see what you did there.
And now here's what's new.
Even louder, even prouder. Season 2 of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, is officially in production. And don't miss season 1 of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, now streaming on Disney Plus.
And Billie Eilish has come to Springfield. The Simpsons, When Billy Met Lisa, is now streaming.
Sketchbook is a 6-episode series that's part profile, part drawing lesson, and features 6 uniquely different Walt Disney Animation Studios artists. We learn about the people behind the Disney animation films you know and love, with every episode featuring a Disney animation character that relates to the artist's journey.
Now we are honored to be joined by one of the artists from Sketchbook, Mark Henn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Mark, you have been working for Walt Disney Animation for 42 years. Can you tell us about some of the movies that you've animated?
Well, the very first feature that I worked on was The Fox and the Hound, and I've pretty much worked on everything since then. The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Mulan, Pocahontas,
Our whole
Great
childhood.
Mouse Detective.
Just all of it. All of it. All of it.
Yeah, it's just like, I think it's a total of 22 features that I've worked on in that time frame.
So you were featured on Sketchbook. Can you tell us what Sketchbook is about and what it was like to be a part of that?
Well, Sketchbook is a really unique series. We interview 6 different artists that represent kind of a mix of different skill sets that we have at the studio. You get to kind of see us actually drawing a specific character and kind of giving a little bit of a drawing lesson. But the other side of it is actually kind of getting to know these artists and to hear their story and how they ended up at the studio.
So can you give us a few tidbits about what your story is about that we get to see in Sketchbook?
My particular story starts in Ohio. I grew up in the Midwest, and there were a couple of major influences in my early years. One was seeing the movie Cinderella. That was probably the first feature film that I saw. My mentor was Eric Larson, who was one of the original 9 Old Men animators at the studio that worked with Walt, and he animated a lot of Cinderella. So I had the opportunity to work with him.
That's fantastic.
So I always had, Cinderella kind of in the back of my mind. But secondly, then at a weekend YMCA camp, they showed the film The Reluctant Dragon, which was Walt's attempt to pull the curtain back and show people how Disney animated films were made. And within that, Ward Kimball is doing a drawing of Goofy, and Goofy starts to dance and come to life. And I was, as a kid, I was just like, oh my gosh, it was just like crunch, the bug bit,
Yeah.
Oh.
So from that point, it really became a boyhood dream for me that I've been very blessed to have lived out now.
You animated young Simba in Walt Disney Animation Studios' The Lion King, which is what your episode of Sketchbook is about. So what was that like?
I actually was very interested in doing Scar. I'd never really done a villain. I'd love to, just kind of, step out of my box, my comfort zone, and do something else. But the producer, Don Hahn, and his amazing wisdom, pulled me aside and expressed the importance of Simba's role. That's the heart of the whole picture.
Yes.
It's his story. It's his journey. For an animator, for an actor, those kind of roles where the character really goes on a journey and grows and learns, that's gold.
Since you draw young Simba in Sketchbook, do you mind giving us a little drawing lesson?
I think we can accommodate you.
All right.
Wonderful.
I just happen to have my handy pencil here and a sketch pad.
How convenient.
How about that? Simba was a lot of fun, and I've learned over the years as I've drawn him many, many times for different things. His head's kind of shaped like a light bulb, and if you draw it from the front on, it's kind of interesting. Where he's got his head and then he's got this jaw. But that's how we start here. We had experts talking to us about animal anatomy, lion anatomy, bird anatomy, of all the different animals that appear.
Wow.
And all that goes into helping the animators to understand the mechanics of just, how they move and all those kind of things. Like, if you had a house cat.
Yeah, the shoulder blades.
The shoulder
that's
blades,
what I know.
exactly. So in Simba, researching the anatomy and, mannerisms of a lion was no different.
Then you do all this studying to see how these lions move in real life to then incorporate to the animation. But then how does it feel to then have to have them do things that lions don't do, like do a whole musical number? Or
Yes, well, that's the fun of animation, of
Right.
course. That's the beauty of what we do. All right, so just a few more items here. I'm gonna put his paw kind of laying in over here like that. I got the whiskers on and everything, and I think
wow. Oh, that's so great.
Hakuna Matata.
It's so wonderful. That is so cool to see. Well, thank you so much, Mark. It was such a pleasure to have you here to talk about your journey in animation. And it's going to be great to see your story as well as others in Sketchbook.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I hope everybody enjoys Sketchbook.
Sketchbook is now streaming on Disney+.
We went over the moon for Marvel Studios' Moon Knight finale and drew inspiration from Sketchbook with Mark Henn. That's our show.
Be sure to head on over to Disney+ to stream all of these and more.
And just one more thing before we sign off. Here at What's Up Disney Plus, we want to wish everyone a happy International Dance Day.
Cheers to the art of dance and to a few Disney+ icons who know how to do it best.
When I'm king, what'll that make you?
A monkey's uncle.
You're so weird.
You have no idea.